Live on Facebook here. All right, I'm live on Facebook. Up and running on Instagram now too. Just let me double check. Good deal. All right, I think we're live, guys. It's 9 a.m. Eastern time. Happy Friday. It's always good for a Friday heading into the weekend. I'm Joe Hanisko. I'm your host of the PT on Ice Daily Show today, Fitness Athlete Friday. We're going to be discussing youth strength and conditioning. Kind of want to just go over like a 30,000-foot view of what the literature is saying on where we're at and what we should be doing to help get these kids moving again. So that'll be the topic for today. We got the open workout posted yesterday, 21.1. Kind of an interesting one. First one with wall walks, not what I was expecting. I think it's going to be a sneaky combination. Shoulders are going to get pretty heavy pretty quick. Heart rate's going to get jacked up real quick with those double unders as well. So at first, I think it looks a little bit, I think it's going to be deceiving. We'll see how it goes today, though. So hopefully y'all are signed up and find that hashtag IcePhysio on the CrossFit leaderboard. You can kind of join in with that too as well. Looking to see you guys on there. So before we get going today, I want to cover just some of the upcoming courses that we have here at ICE. As always, if you're looking to get signed up, go on to the icephysio.com website. Live courses coming up though. This weekend we have in Greenville, South Carolina, we have the clinical management and fitness athlete live course with the barbell physio, I believe. That's AKA Zach Long. So he's going to be leading that course down in South Carolina. Always a good time. Fantastic course to get involved with. Next week, we have a double header of lumbar spine and cervical spine management. I think lumbar is down in Baton Rouge. I was just down there. It's awesome clinic set up down there. It's a great place to visit. I think the lumbar course is going to be killing it this weekend or next weekend. Cervical is over in Maryland next weekend on the 20th and 21st. And at the end of the month, we're kicking up the sampler, the ICE sampler, which if you haven't had an opportunity to get down to that, this year may not work for you, but look into our years to come. It's a fantastic sort of smorgasbord of everything we offer at ICE, so it's going to be a good time. Online courses the next month or so. I got a little bit of everything. I think essentials and advanced concepts of the clinical management of fitness athlete will be available in March and April. Primary care PT is coming back around here in the next couple of weeks. I think Dunaway is going to be leading the persistent pain course again. And then we have modern management of the older adult essentials online as well. So plenty of offerings there. Take a look if you're interested. Get in some CEUs. It's a great opportunity to do that there. So plan for today. Youth strength and conditioning is the topic, and I kind of wanted to first just start out, we'll get into an intro of just the history of the perceptions of youth strength conditioning, but primarily I like to focus on the benefits of the strength conditioning and where we're seeing the literature going, and then maybe some examples or some get some segues going on how you might be able to get involved. So I think each of these little caveats could probably be its own potential podcast. So my goal really today is just to introduce the topic, and I think it's been sort of a hot topic button. And when do we get kids involved with strength conditioning or movement-based fitness? So hopefully we can cover that today. So frankly, the history all falls back on there's not a whole lot there with youth strength conditioning. I think it was sort of a taboo sort of idea that if you were working with kids before like puberty age, that we should just be keeping them away from strength-based sports. Frankly, for the fear of injury, and more specifically, I think the fear of the growth plate issue. So the epiphyseal plate damage was always a sort of a thought after negative consequence of loading up a child or a younger athlete. But it's 2021, and frankly, the jury's strong, and it's a landslide showing that there really is nothing to be concerned when it comes to appropriate loading to younger kids with their growth plates. Like, we're not seeing the damage that we thought we might see. In fact, as you'll see later, we're seeing some positive benefits, as you might expect, just with any other strength conditioning. A regular aged adult, a mature adult, or older adult. I think you're going to see the benefits probably are going to outweigh the risks. And that's kind of why I threw the title in here, is that really the only danger right now, I think, moving forward is the denial, or the denial of the opportunity to get these kids involved. So let's look at, some of those benefits here in a second. But if we go back quickly and just think, though, what I found sort of amusing in a way, or kind of an oxymoron, is that we're pushing kids, and we should be not pushing, but introducing them to the opportunity to get involved with just the traditional sports that are available out there: the footballs, baseball, softball, soccer, basketball, you name it. I think the benefits of the camaraderie, the team sport, they're all there. The physical sides are all there, and the injury risk is there, and it's just part of the game, if you want to say it that way. And to say that getting involved in a strength sport is any more risky than just playing a traditional based sport, I kind of would beg to differ, and so would the literature. If you think about it in a way of getting Johnny or Susan out playing soccer, for example, and just the unexpected environments that can occur that can lead to injury. I think the beauty of getting someone involved in a strength program is that it can be individually coached and controlled environment where we can actually eliminate or reduce the risk of injury, probably more than even with our traditional sports, which most of us would deem as fairly safe for most of our athletes to get involved in. So I think the literature would show that probably on average you're seeing similar injury rates between strength-based sports and traditional-based sports. But I would beg to differ in a way too, saying that if we can eliminate the variable, the unpredicted environment, I think we might be able to actually make this an even safer environment for our younger athletes if it's done correctly there. So a review again, the history basically was there really wasn't much. There really wasn't been a whole lot going on with youth and the strength-based sports. And it was all geared around the idea of potential injury risk and growth plate issues and stunting growth. And trust me, I'm not a big person. That came across my mind. I used to hesitate myself, and I remember talking to my parents about it. Ultimately, I think the literature is supporting that we're going to be okay, and I'm short for other reasons. And it's not because I like to lift weights, that's for sure. So, benefits. I dove into literature pretty good here in the last couple weeks, couple months on youth strength conditioning, and frankly, no matter what article I was pulling up, I saw a lot of similar thought processes that were showing up in these papers. So I pulled up the top 5 benefits that I feel like getting a kid involved in a movement-based strength conditioning program or resistance-based program can have. So top 5 benefits, starting first and foremost with just learning to move the body. I think it's crucial that movement of the body is taught in an early age when these kids are pliable and plastic, just like their brain is developing. I think their bodies at the same point are learning how to move and what it feels like to move inappropriately and appropriately. And I think it's a great time to jump in on learning some of these behaviors here. There was a term that came up frequently of movement literacy. I thought that was a really tricky kind of bright word to use. I liked it. It sparked a lot of thought in my mind. I mean, if we compare movement literacy to just regular literacy, we don't expect our kids to just show up on school day one and write some beautiful 400-page novel with perfect grammar. It starts with the basics. We go over learning the alphabet at a young age, and then writing the alphabet, and then turning that alphabet into taking those letters and turning them into words and sentences and then paragraphs, and then you sprinkle on some fancy grammatical ability and correct terminologies, and the flow starts to come together. And then eventually you get to that point where we get some pretty talented writers out there leaving high school and getting into college, but it takes time to build there. So I feel like the movement literacy term is awesome in the fact that if we start at a young age to build the foundation, the basic movement principles, that they can sprout into a pretty well-developed moving athlete down the road as well. And so avoiding these early opportunities is not the way to go. I think it's getting them included. So, benefit number 1 is just learning to move their body. Benefit number 2, we're going to go with building tissue resilience. So we see it in the adult population. We see it in the older adult population, but as we load tissues and move tissues, they become more resilient. They don't typically break down because of it. They're actually building strength and resilience. And I think that's important for a number of reasons. And even though it may be happening differently in our younger athletes, a lot of the research is showing that strength gains in our younger athletes are probably more to the neurologic system rather than true hypertrophy of tissue just due to hormonal issues and whatnot, or lack of hormones. But we're building tissue resilience, and by building resilience, we're ultimately working to prevent injury as well. So we can include that as a benefit, and the research is pretty solid there as well too, that when you get kids involved with a separate strength program and they're involved with regular traditional style sports, we're seeing injury risks reduced across the board, which is fantastic. So the tissue resilience can lead to injury prevention, but I think injury prevention can be its own benefit in that we can help to avoid some of these overuse injuries that we're seeing by just offering another mode of movement for these kids. So you take a 10, 12-year-old baseball player or a softball player where predominantly the motion that they're using is just torque around the shoulder and the elbow. Getting involved in a strength program to build up rotator cuff strength or elbow flexor and extensor stabilizers, I think can be super beneficial to help, again, up the chain avoid injuries, or down the chain just provide another mode of movement for them, which I think is unique in today's world where so many specialization athletes are presenting. So taking that kid and really just hammering him into one single sport, which we could go, again, a whole nother podcast maybe on the benefits or the risks of specialization. I think you're going to see a split board just depending on who you talk to there. But I think it's important to build a well-rounded athlete to offer them different modes of movement. So far we've talked about benefit of just learning to move the body at an early age. The benefit of strength conditioning and movement-based sports and preventing injury due to increasing tissue resilience, and just offering a different mode of movement and the overall injury prevention that can hold with it. But the last two I think are awesome and extremely important. Some of the ones that I didn't really necessarily think about right off the top of my head, but another common term that I was seeing in the literature was sort of a diagnosis code in a way of EDD, which stands for exercise deficiency disorder, which it is as simple as it sounds, is that we're seeing not only in kids but also adults, we're seeing a disproportionate ratio of lack of movement, and then going alongside with that an increase in chronic diseases. And if we look at kids of our current generation, we're seeing increased chronic illnesses, the diabetes, the high blood pressures at a young age that maybe we weren't seeing as regularly before. And frankly, a lot of that could be tied to the lack of movement, and getting kids involved in a structured program early can help prevent some of this. And I think it's crucial. I think it's absolutely our responsibility to start to open these doorways to make that happen, because what we do now is going to set the future for our healthcare system and frankly the lives of these kids down the road. So avoiding it, again, that's where the dangers in the denial. It's not in the movement itself, it's definitely in the denial, the lack of opportunity out there. Interest levels are down. If you look at literature, interest levels are down in sports. Sometimes opportunity has been down due to current budget issues, potentially lack of not being engaged in a school environment anymore, or hopefully returning to that. But high school sports and youth sports were limited there. So I think, again, just providing another opportunity, another outlet for movement would be fantastic. And the final one that I wanted to bring up really is confidence. And I think that's huge too, where we look at just the impact of mental health. But the literature shows that kids who are involved with sports, who are happy with the way that their body is and it's moving and that they're participating in things that make them feel physically good, but also mentally good, that's a win. That's a win-win times 100. Like, you're never going to get anything better than that. So we can always reflect back to all the physical things that we talked about, like the movement literacy and tissue tolerance and resilience. But really, if we look down to the chronic illness and avoiding that and building confidence in these kids at an early age, I think beyond all else, right there is the money, and we got to run with that if we can. So how do we do this then? I think my first thought was I got to reflect back to just baseline, level of movement. And at a young age, your 3, your 4, your 5-year-old kids, like, get them out playing and moving. The playgrounds are there for a reason. And if we really think about the components of what they're doing on a playground, you got kids crawling and climbing, some of these foundational movement patterns. What's the difference between a kid grabbing a ledge, pulling themselves up on that ledge, and then in a few years from now introducing them to a gymnastics bar where they're doing a strict pull-up? There's not a whole lot of difference there, and I think it's just a segue into the next level of movement for them. And we're seeing, just as I mentioned before, a decrease in just activity levels in kids. And I think some of that responsibility is obviously on healthcare, but also just as parents and reminding them in the education that it's important. Take the 5-minute walk across the street to the park, let them run around for 30 minutes. You got to do nothing other than watch Yes, is there potential for injury? Maybe, but again, I think the benefits outweigh the risks in this situation for sure. I think those sort of gymnastics class or gym gestures based classes are fantastic too. At first, I remember kind of thinking they were humorous in a way, and it's just a good time to get out and move again and learn some of those basic movement principles. So you start with the foundation of just play, essentially, and we move into organized elements-based classes. So we talk about elements in the adult CrossFit world. There's some gyms like Fenton, CrossFit Fenton up in Michigan here, not too far from me with Mitch and Alan. They got a teen CrossFit class, and I know that they start with, they teach these kids to move, and then they grow with them. So but I think if you get into these basic courses or these element-like courses where you can get kids in your door into a CrossFit-style gym or just anywhere, honestly, and teach them the refined, unloaded movements, like the foundational movement patterns of a squat, of a hinge, of a push and a pull, I think that's where we can start to nail in how the body is supposed to move, which will set them up for more advanced movements down the road. We can focus on mechanics and consistency here. You know, the load doesn't even have to be introduced yet. It's just repeating movement, building those neurologic pathways, building that motor control with these kids, and just setting them up for future success with movement as well. I think there's unique ways that we could add load in without actually giving full external load at this stage as well too. You know, isometrics and eccentrics, the tempo, for example, like having a kid do just a tempo squat rather than just a fast up and down air squat. Adding some control and some tempo into that can really, you know, teach and hone in on that movement pattern, but also you're adding a little bit more of that time under tension, and you start to build some tissue resilience and strength through that without actually adding any external load and compromising movement at that time. So I think tempo could come into play here. And also I think it's normal to expect error. Like we all have our movement flaws, and it's okay that a child doesn't move like Matt Frazier. Like it's not expected. And occasionally you get the prodigy who looks fantastic, and that's the kid that maybe we're pushing on to a next level a little bit earlier. But you know, errors are expected. Errors are part of learning. That's how the brain works, and that feedback system there. And I think with good coaching, we can kind of filter those errors and really help hone in on what we're trying to get with that movement-based course there. So adding in those basic or those element-style courses are great. And then when the child is starting to show some maturity in their movement patterns and they have the mechanics and the consistency, then we talk about adding external load. And I think early on with our younger kids here, the idea is submax load. So we're looking at maybe 50 to 75% of what their predicted 1 rep max would be. And honestly, that kind of fits into a normal standard of a hypertrophy range there. Maybe a little bit on the lighter end, but you know, getting kids to do 3 to 5 sets, 8 to 12 reps in that 50 to 75-ish% range there really allows them to start to build some of that strength up in a safe and respectable manner as well. I think the topic of 1 rep max is discussed a lot as well, and there's nothing wrong with a 1 rep max, but I think at an earlier age, a 3 rep max might tell me just as much about what that athlete's capability is versus that 1 rep max. Honestly, even in adults, that's probably the case at times where, you know, as we start to push people to 98, 99, 100, or 101% for a new PR, occasionally we see mechanical flaws, technical maxes, and it's expected, and we're pushing our boundaries, and again, that's okay to do that. But as we're learning to move and building some of this positive foundation, then maybe we go with more of a 3 or a 5 rep max where technicality can stay concrete, and we can really start to just challenge the muscular and the neurologic system at the same time doing that. So I think the true strength training principles can show them their face at some point once we've developed the mechanics and the consistency and the intensity, and that goes back to CrossFit methodology. That's 101. That's how we should be treating all movers, is that I would never expect, you know, someone who just learned a power clean today to be consistently doing multiple reps in a row without error, and until they are, I'm not necessarily expecting them to throw in some major intensity, especially with load or high volume, until they can really fine-tune those movement patterns there. So let's treat the kids just the same way we would treat any other adult who walks into a gym or a CrossFit facility or anything like that. Let's work on the mechanics, let's drill home consistency, and then we talk about intensity down the road. So I think, frankly, as I wrap up here, this is a perfect gap that needs to be filled, and I think healthcare professionals like physical therapists are well suited for this. We have the medical side, and if we can develop the skill and have those clinicians out there who have the strength conditioning background and the understanding of good movement principles, I think it's a perfect opportunity to fill a void here that needs to be filled. But frankly, I think interdisciplinary connections are fantastic as well. Got connected with a gym here lately in my hometown. He's running youth strength programs all the time, and they're doing great. Like, you're seeing great results, and the kids are having fun doing it. And if you can combine with a group like that, or a guy, a man or a woman who has that fitness professional background, who has the drive to doing this as well. It takes a unique person, because the communication with some of these younger adults and kids can be challenging. But you find the right person, I think we can really make some pretty strong strides in the right direction there. So recap, it's not dangerous. In fact, it's quite the opposite. The benefits are far outweighing the risks in this situation, and the only danger is in denial. And I think that's our job from day one, to get these kids moving and feeling more fit and healthy, from at the very least, whether they plan to be a high level athlete or they're just trying to live life. Like, I think the benefits are definitely there. The literature is very clear on this, and it's basically worry less and move more. Like, let's just get out there and get after it. And we talked about some of those benefits. They're essentially endless, but the top 5 in my mind were building just movement literacy, building tissue resilience, avoiding injury and preventing injury, offering just a different mode of movement, and then those 2 big hitters at the end with fighting against the chronic illness with the exercise deficiency disorder, and just building confidence as well too. So I think we got a huge void to fill here, but I just sort of wanted to introduce the topic and see what people's thoughts were on it and who's out there doing it already. I'm starting to see more of it, but there's definitely more to be had, and I think it's our job to step up and do that. So it's been great, guys. I'm going to let you run. It's Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Get after the 21-1 open workout. Good luck to you there, and we will catch up at another time. Adios, guys. We'll see you later.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.